Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 109. Enhance
Go ahead.
information for your transformation. Obviously, we didn't really know what to call this episode. I'm Michelle Hawk, and I'm here with my shaman sister, Katherine Bird. And today we're essentially what we're actually talking about, because that title makes absolutely no sense. We're talking about the positive feedback loops that we create during the transformation process. And because we couldn't think of a catchy title,
And because Michelle is a Gemini and all punny,
that's what we came up with.
that's what Michelle came up with. So I made her say it.
All right.
Enhanceformation for your transformation. Here it is. So positive feedback loops for your awakening, your transformation, your healing process, all of these things. On our last episode, 108, we talked about how you can't just open in one area, and how so often the opening, the awakening process, it triggers all of these other things that may or may not be quite uncomfortable, and what to do about that and what to know about that. So if you haven't listened to that yet, I would circle back and listen to that, because there's lots of great tools in there and information as to what happens when you start to open and then you have a reaction where you start to open in one area of your life, and then you realize that all of this other stuff is coming along for the ride. And so to build on that, we are looking at how all the other stuff is coming along for the ride, and how we often try so hard to compartmentalize our lives, to be like, okay, I'm working over here, I'm doing this over here, this is this, this is this, this is this. But when we talk about personal, spiritual, energetic development and healing, we are very much looking in a more holistic way at ourselves and our lives and all of these things. So we want to drop in on that, and so much more, and how we can build and enhance, right? Enhancement, but it's like building the building blocks of what your process is that you're going through. But before we talk any more about it, please be sure to subscribe, to like us, to love us, to comment, to do all the things, and share our work, because we really enjoy doing these podcasts and sharing them with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Michelle.
Oh, got a little
Enhancement.
distracted by the title there. So
We did.
finishing our intro. I want to highlight one of the pieces that you were talking about, and add to that, we do not exist as discrete systems, right? Like no area of our life is separate from any other area of our life, as much as we might like to believe that that's the case, right? And there are some people who devote a lot of energy to creating compartmentalization, or saying my work life is completely separate from my personal life, is completely separate from my health or my relationships or whatever. The reality is we don't work that way. Nothing about us works that way. Our body, our energy field, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, everything is in its highest form a very holistic and integrated system. And we can use this for those of you who like to do hacking, right? Is that the right term? Like biohack or energy hacks, right? For those of you who like to look at, well, how can I hack this system? We can capitalize upon that to enhance our transformation. And one of the ways that we can look at this again is the idea of creating a positive feedback loop. So let's just first define that term, since that's part of what we're looking at today. I want everyone to be on the same page in terms of what we're talking about. We see this as essentially input of energy or information creating an effect, which then perpetuates that input of information, which perpetuates the effect, right? So it ends up being this cycling of energy, where imagine, for example, the idea of somebody wanting to get in shape, right? And so somebody wants to get in shape, and so they're putting in energy of working out and working on their nutrition and doing positive self-affirmation of I love myself and I love my body, right? And as they're starting to work out and work on their nutrition, and they're affirming this to themselves, oh, I love myself and I love my body, they're creating more fitness, they're creating more health and vitality in their body, and it's perpetuating the positive feedback loop of, oh, I feel better by working out and affirming this to myself. So it's easier for me to continue working out and continue to affirm, I love myself and I love my body, which then creates more effect of that desired nature, which it creates a positive feedback loop, right? So that's a really easy example of input of energy creates an effect, which then makes it easier to continue to input that type of energy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
About that definition? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the positive feedback loop, like advanced level, right? Like that's a very direct positive feedback loop of working within the same system, right? So working within health and fitness, exercise, nutrition creates an effect within that same realm. Where we start to get into a little bit more of this advanced positive feedback loops within the entire system of transformation is inputting energy into one system and creating a positive effect within another system, and having that perpetuate and letting that cycle through perhaps a harder to reach system, or if we're not necessarily as skilled or able to access in as directive a way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great. Do you have other words to explain that?
No, I think you're so scientific, Michelle. I think that this is good. I think this is an effective description and definition of what we're looking at. And coming back to this idea that nothing is just in isolation. And also the idea from our last episode of looking at, okay, if you are opening something in one area, it's actually opening things in all areas. And so often we want change in one area. We want change. I want change here. And that's what we're focused on. And then we're really shocked and surprised that everything starts to change and everything comes up for review and everything needs to be looked at. And, oh, well, but I didn't want to change that. And I didn't want to change that. But if we do start making those changes in the areas where maybe we weren't focused at all, then we are going to see this cumulative positive impact in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to bring in another sciencey term for us within this because it's such a perfect example and perfect way to think about this. So within a system, within a holistic system, we can look at what are the keystone factors, meaning which factors, when you change them, have the greatest effect upon the holistic system. And we see this in ecology, looking at keystone species, right? So for example, especially like in the Pacific Northwest or in areas where there are wolves, right? Wolves are a keystone species, meaning that having a healthy wolf population within a holistic system, within the ecosystem, has an effect upon the entire system because they're an apex predator, because they control the population of other prey populations, which then affects the plant life, which affects the insects, which affects the water flow, which affects all of these things, right? So wolves are a keystone species. And we've seen time and time again, when there's disruption to a keystone species, the entire ecosystem goes out of balance, right? So applying this to our personal life and your personal transformation, being able to identify what are your keystone habits, what are your keystone practices, what are your keystone behaviors, that when those that have the greatest effect upon the entirety of your personal system, meaning upon your life, upon your health, upon your financial well-being, upon your relationships, upon your communication. Science.
You're right. This is science. So and in our last episode, we did an assessment. We also did an assessment, a self-assessment of looking at kind of our go-to ways that we distract ourselves. And then here we're kind of going in the positive assessment too. Like, what are the things that have the most positive impact on your life? and looking at how those things are actually affecting other things in your life. Michelle, give us an example of something you have in your life that feels like one of these pieces.
Yeah, one of my keystone practices and behaviors is my physical practice. Definitely super easy to pinpoint at that. I know for myself, and I've had lots and lots of evidence over the years that when my physical practice, meaning my exercise and my embodiment and my movement practice, and of course, as a function of that is also nutrition, right? Even though that's kind of a separate system, it's a related system. When my physical practice is really good, everything else in my life becomes easier and becomes more healthy, more amplified, more effective. I generally make more money. I have more energy in my body. I have more attention and focus. I have better ideas. My work is more powerful. My psychic perception and my intuition is more powerful. I'm able to hold more energy for my transformation work. I have more social energy. Like everything about my life is better when my physical practice is on and fully amplified.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that for me too. And I would say that for most of the people that I work with, that's also the case. And that probably to look at your physical practice is a really big one to put a lot of emphasis on, because a lot of us just don't have that. We don't have a physical practice. And um, so there's sort of the different realms of this, people who don't have a physical practice. There are I work all the time, I have kids, I have busy from the time I get up to the time I go to sleep. I don't have time for this people. And then there are I'm really spiritual and psychically motivated. So my practice is almost 100% sitting, meditating, tuning, channeling, those things.
Upper chakra.
Yeah. So those tend to be, or I just don't have, like, it's not become a practice. It hasn't been a priority. It hasn't been something that I've given myself. Sometimes it's given myself permission, right? Given myself permission just to move my body and be in my body and enjoy my body every day.
I will say also, a lot of times people exercise. I will say exercise does not equal physical practice. And depending on many factors, but depending on your body type, depending on your alchemical constitution, depending on your physiology, depending on so many factors, having a certain type of physical practice can be either really expansive or actually really contractive and depleting on your system. So what works for somebody doesn't work for everybody. And I know that that my physical practice, what is really awesome for me, and I've been through many physical practices over the years with, I used to do a ton of sports and then running and dance and, weightlifting and martial arts and all of these different things. And so I've kind of been able to hone into, okay, what actually, more than just any physical practice, what type of physical practice creates that is that keystone habit for me. So invitation, we're going to kind of leave that there, because I feel like we could do a completely separate episode on physical practice or on practice for your physiology, like how to create. Should we do that? Let's bookmark that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to see that episode, leave a comment on here and say, yes, please record this one. But what would be another keystone habit? You said yes, physical practice for you, but I know also for other people, like I have a client who loves journaling. Like that is one of her keystone practices.
Yeah. I have also a lot of clients that journaling is a big one. I would say creativity for me, making things beautiful is like one of my keystone practices for sure. And if I have a certain amount of time during the day or during the week that is about making little altars and painting and working with things and stacking books to look beautiful in different places, like, it's like that brings so much life force into my body and into my life. And it's so inspiring, and to have a beautiful place to be in, to practice, to do my work in, that is so up levels my life and my experience on every level of my being. I become a better person. When I don't have that, I find that I stagnate, I struggle, I am more likely to engage in negative self-talk. I'm not moving enough of that energy in my life. And I've also found that for some of my clients, the thing that they've needed the most is to find a creative way to engage with their work and what they're doing. So that might be making a beautiful beautiful canvas on the wall, and then putting colored post-it notes of like the chapters of the book or the program that's being launched. Working with something in a visual way stimulates parts of ourselves that we yearn for in a lot of ways. So we can weave creativity. So that's a way of like, okay, this is creativity, which can be done on its own as its own separate little thing. Or there's the creativity of, oh, I'm going to make this healing tool for someone, and that's very creative for me. Or I'm going to engage with a process of building out my program in a way that's very visual and creatively stimulating for me. And so now I've taken my creative process and I've linked it into my business. And now my business feels more fun and rewarding, and I want to do it more, and making money feels fun.
You're such a salt in Venus. Salt Venus. Everything has to be beautiful. And if you want to know what that means, ask me about the I Am Alchemy course. I'll just put that in there. But yeah, you're totally right. Okay, so creativity and creativity is another keystone practice, right? That's what we're talking about in terms of like, and I want to emphasize here what you're talking about with your clients, it infusing creativity into their business or whatever. It impacts all areas of their life. It's not just their business. It's and I'm sure that you've experienced this too, right? In terms of like your home feels. Tell me more about what that's like. Like, you know, when you curate your altar spaces and you clean everything and everything is beautifully arranged, what happens in all other areas of your life?
Well, one of the things that happens is that all of a sudden I'm inspired everywhere. And there's a sense of being nurtured and balanced and safe that I receive from that, which, you know, it's hard sometimes to get people to even put up an altar. I have probably dozens of altars in my house in different kinds of ways, but sometimes it's very hard for someone to connect with that of like, what does that mean? And how do I build an altar? And how do I do it right? And it brings up all of these things of, you know, how we relate to our own creative process and to imagery and visualization and all of these things. When we start to work with that, then it's like, oh, my meditation practice is infused with these beautiful images and this beautiful space. And my work, when I'm working with someone, I'm infused with this beauty in the space. And even I was on one of my heroes, my membership calls the other day, and one of the members came on and was like, I'm so glad to be here. And Kat, it just to see your space and to see your books stacked, like he's like, something about seeing your space and your books stacked infuses me with a sense of peace. And so I see a lot of people either doing podcast interviews or summits, or they're teaching a lecture, or they're doing something online and they're on Zoom or they're on YouTube, and you're just like, where the heck are you? Like, why are you in like your laundry room? Like, why is this the ugliest room of your house that you've chosen to like bring your word to the world, instead of like, what are you really infusing into your creation and what you're making? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My background could probably use a little adjust. I had someone give me feedback that I should have a live plant behind me. So
Okay.
I have not yet done that because this corner doesn't
It
actually
doesn't get good light.
light. Right. So I'm open to feedback. I mean, I do definitely have other, perhaps more interesting areas of my office that I could be in, but this is where the couch is and it's most comfortable for me.
I can send you a link to the LED grow light bulb that is feeding this plant here.
Maybe. Okay, so that's what I need. I need to, yeah. So I'm open, y'all. If you've got any suggestions for me, I mean, I could honestly, like, maybe that's something I explore. Of like, okay, I can sit in front of my
Yeah.
easel or
The
something.
thing is that Michelle has a super epic space in there, and yeah, you don't really get the true essence of all of the
No.
magnificence that you have going on in your space. Maybe you
All
should
right.
do a tour of like different spots, and we'll like,
We talked about that a couple episodes ago. Maybe we okay, so we're revisiting. All right, this is a thing. And you know what? I'm gonna commit to, I don't know if it'll be the next episode, but it'll be sometime very soon, where I'm gonna actually set up in front of a different background so you can see something else epic and beautiful behind me.
yeah.
And
Well, and also this is the sunlight. This is the window is where you're at. So that's kind of hard to navigate away
yeah, it's
from.
mostly a lighting choice that has dictated where I am, lighting and sitting in a comfortable place. But you know what?
Right. But at least you're not in your laundry room and or like with all like stacks of stuff or like your unmade bed and all like I've seen this I've seen somebody leading a meditation with like all of these people, like 1,000 people showed up at this meditation and you're like, when you make your bed, like what's going on here?
Right. Okay,
So
I'll
that's a keystone, like beauty. And that's true. It's like if you get up every day and you're like, I don't know what to do to make my life better, well, make your fucking bed and clean your kitchen and put a plant in your house and like start these things that make your life seem more beautiful on the outside, and actually it does affect what's happening on the inside.
Well, an organization, right? That's I had a friend come over to my house a while ago, and yeah, this was the first time they came over to my house, and they're walking around, they're saying, "Oh my gosh, your house is so tidy, it's so organized. Like my whole body just feels more relaxed." I'm like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right."
Yeah.
If you're
This is so important if you are seeing clients and they are coming to your space, or even if you're seeing them online like this, that you are not sabotaging them by bringing them into a level of clutter and disorganization or dirt or whatever it is that's going to disrupt their energy body.
well, and sabotaging yourself, right? If
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at like um foundation, right? This is like basic foundation of energetic anatomy is we naturally seek harmony and organization, right? Like an organized energy field and energy system is far more has a far greater capacity, far more powerful, far more comfortable, far more amplified than a disorganized or disharmonious or chaotic energy system. And one of the easiest ways, again, working within an entire, so let's look at like ways that one could organize one's energy system. You could work within your energy system. You can do Qigong, you can do meditation, you can do movement practice, you can clean your house. That will automatically have an impact on your energy system. This is, again, one of these keystone factors that affects not only its own system, but also every other system, right? And so again, like identifying what are the keystone practices or behaviors or factors in yourself and in your life, and what other systems do they impact? How do you feel when your house is clean? When's the last time you cleaned behind the toilet? What would that do for you, right? Of like getting into all of the nooks and crannies of, and I know in our last episode I mentioned the inevitable spider nests in the boxes in the garage. Like, being super real, that would probably have some sort of impact on me energetically to go clean that. I'm not really willing to do that right now, but I'm aware that that would be a thing. But in terms of what we're talking about, I want to shift gears just a little bit slightly because why are we talking about this? Why does this matter, right? And again, the whole enhanceformation for your transformation. I had to say that one more time. uh, if you're feeling a lot of stagnation or stuck energy or resistance in a particular area of your life, don't necessarily start in that area of your life. Put an infusion of energy into one of these other areas where it's easier for you to access and create momentum. It will have a ripple effect when you again, like, work with your strengths, right? Work with where energy is more likely to flow, create some movement and momentum, and it'll start to break things up and create more. It'll have a feedback loop. Again, that's the whole point. We're working with how to create feedback loops in these
Right.
life.
Now, one that I see that's really common is that there is a sense of ungrounded, like, especially with healers in their business, right? Where it's unsustainable, it's not consistent. I'm kind of all over the place. I don't know what my offers are. I don't know how to get clients. Like, all of these things are happening. And there's this like throwing a bunch of stuff out into the world, trying to create and do these things, and nothing's really landing and all of this stuff. And then, but, and looking at, well, my problem is that my business is not thriving and I'm not making enough money. Right. So I can spend all my time and effort and energy doing this. And then they hire this business coach and they spend the thousands of dollars over here and thousands of dollars over here. And it's like, okay, well, I just spent $15,000 on this business coach. And then you go, well, but your house is a mess, or you don't have a house. You don't have a proper place to live. You're sleeping at somebody's house that you don't even like. You are in a bad relationship with somebody who's, giving you a hard time all the time, or like all of these layers of the grounded, stable, consistent parts of life, that if you really focused on those things and started making major changes in those areas, then what naturally occurs is that you are more grounded, you're more stable, you're less chaotic, you're more consistent, and everything comes into alignment from that place. It is, I will tell you, from running a business and traveling all the time, that is a challenge. And if you aren't already quite established, then building that foundation, as Michelle's been saying, that word foundation is really important. And to look at the areas of your life where that, what you're looking for isn't actually in resonance with this other stuff that you have going on.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. Love what you said. And I think a way that we can look at to kind of diagnose this, right? Because we might be, and this is a conversation I've had with many clients, and I've even kind of walked myself through this process of like, okay, something isn't working in this area of my life. Let's use the business as an example, right? You mentioned offers all over the place, or not making enough money, or perhaps making a bunch of money one month and no money the next month, right? So having inconsistent income, or being unclear about what you're actually offering, or clients are canceling, or whatever the deal is, right? So looking at, there's some chaos happening within that system. What are the energetic signatures of what you're noticing, right? Okay, so there's inconsistency. There's what would other signatures of that be? Or like ungroundedness and like waffling back and forth, right?
Yeah, inability to make a decision or commit.
Right. So analyze that and look at what are the energy signatures of that. Then zoom out, look at where else in my life do I have those habits or energy signatures, right? Oh, I'm really inconsistent in my personal practice. Oh, I don't have the greatest self-image and I'm not really that secure in who I am as a person. Oh, I have really poor boundaries with my mom or my partner or whatever the deal is. And these are exactly the same phenomenon that you're experiencing within the realm of your business. So then clean up your systems over here, right? And it will impact this other system. So that's one hack that you can look at. Again, you don't necessarily need to work within that system in order to create transformation there. In fact, I would say more often it's likely that your problem is actually in another area, but it's just showing up as a symptom in this different area.
And I see so many times people make huge investments in business coaching and business programs, and they never get anything out of it. They never create the things that they're supposed to create there. They never move forward on anything. They never they don't get anything out of it. And it's because they're operating and giving coaching advice and instruction as if you already have your shit together in other areas of your life. And a lot of times we just can't assimilate and integrate any kind of other teaching until we get solid over here. And I've experienced that in myself. I've experienced that in my life or you get into this thing and you're like, oh, okay, I'm super confronted and I really need to get my shit together in all of these areas and figure out my life in all of these areas in order to be able to enact these things. And sometimes it's simple things. So don't think like, I'm so overwhelmed by all of these things. My life is a mess. And now, they've told me that I don't have my shit together. I'm always going to be a failure. It's not what we're saying. Okay. Because honestly, we've both been there where we've struggled in our business. We've struggled in life. We've made stupid decisions and had bad relationships and the whole across the board. Whatever you're going through, we hear you. We got you. But there's small things that really make a huge difference. Like one that made a huge difference for me was committing to having an electronic calendaring system and to scheduling and calendaring things into the future. And I really sabotaged myself by not wanting to make commitments and not wanting to do things this way. And so what I was finding was like, oh, I'm making money and then I'm not, and then I'm not, and I don't know what's next. And I'm always stressed and I'm always worried about what money is coming in and where it's coming from and what I'm doing next. And I'm always like seat of my pants trying to figure it out. And that was like one of the tiniest basic little things that I implemented that changed, like it started the ground floor foundation for a lot of other major changes in my business.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good example. It's something that like is seemingly so tiny, and yet it created more spaciousness and freedom and predictability for you. I will also say the symptoms that you're seeing usually show up in the area where we're paying more attention, right? So I want to just kind of circle back a little bit of, the business example, right? Again, you're making inconsistent income. You have weird boundaries with your clients, and your offerings are inconsistent, right? Because you're paying attention to your business, that's where the symptoms are showing up. But what it's speaking to is the challenges over here. It's actually saying you need to be more consistent in your personal practice. You need to have better boundaries with your mom, and you need to be more stable in your self-identity. But you're not actually putting your attention on these areas. So the symptoms are showing up in your business. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've given you, I want to just sort of like recap some tools here. Number one, audit your keystone practices and behaviors to look at what things can you do for yourself or what things do you do for yourself that have the biggest impact upon the most areas of your life, and really amplify those. Looking at the energy signatures of the challenges that you're experiencing and looking, well, where else in my life am I experiencing those challenges, and how can I operate in those other systems to create a positive feedback loop for that transformation in a completely different system in my life. As we're making our list, what else goes on the list, Kat? We've offered so many tools.
I don't remember.
Organization. No, right. Speaking of organization, that was one of the keystones.
Right. So we can have, all of these keystones can be different, and maybe there's something that you have typically maybe not been great at, and then you get to put a little bit more energy in that area and it amplifies everything, because there was zero energy in that area before, and now just adding a little bit of attention to that area really expands a lot. And I see this a lot with, oh, I just started meditating for, 5 or 10 minutes a day, or journaling every day for 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm sleeping better, I feel more peaceful, I feel more joyful, I'm having interesting dreams or inquiries or all of these things. Like a very small thing, like you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to make some huge, big, declarative life, thing. You can make really small changes in these different areas and see a big feedback loop in other areas.
Yeah, super, super important. Again, looking at, back to, I was going to go into a whole story about my ecology class, right, in university, and how like adding or subtracting like one or two wolves from a system like changed the entire system, right? Like it, just looking at, these programs and models of how it impacted the whole thing. Anyway, small changes make a big difference when you're working with Keystone habits.
Right. What's your one wolf? The one wolf theory system of personal development.
There you go. Yeah. What is your wolf? What's your Keystone wolf? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Great.
what's he eating?
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, that was a lot of tools. Okay. Enhanceformation for your transformation, brought to you by the Shaman Sisters. Da da da. If you enjoyed this and are interested in more, usually they have fewer puns in them. I will say. Usually they're
Yeah.
a little bit less.
We usually cut the puns.
Right. Exactly. Well, I just went for it this time. But if you're interested in more of the awesome, practical and philosophical and entertaining and grain of salt wisdom that we have to offer, please do tune in to any of our other 108 episodes that you can access through YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can like, follow, subscribe, leave 5-star reviews, share them with your friends, share them with your enemies, share them with anyone, and put more of this knowledge in the hands of people who need it. So please help us with that if you feel so inclined. We would also love if you feel inclined to support us financially. It does cost us money to produce this podcast, and we want to continue to make it available. So you can become a patron of our work at patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions. Even $1 a month is helpful. That's patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions, or you can send us a one-time donation to our PayPal account, Shaman Sister Sessions at gmail.com. If you're interested in receiving support from us individually or collectively, you can contact me through my website, joyofenergy.com, and ask me about the alchemy course, or you can contact Kat
at katherinebird.com. And right now I'm just focused on one-on-one work in my membership program, Heroes, which is an incredible program of live calls and support, qigong, meditation, inner work, personal development, spiritual development, energetic development, all of the developments, all of your major keystone players right there in one place. And that's about it.
I see what you did there. Yes, all the keystones available through Heroes. Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks, y'all, for tuning in. We hope that you get some really good stuff out of this. Please leave us a comment below. Let us know your favorite keystone habits and practices, and we will see you next time.